Alright, we're gonna get started. Thanks everybody. I am Belle. I'm on the events team here at Books for Magic. Thank you so much. We are so excited to have Puloma, Ghosh, and McGhee with us tonight to celebrate Puloma's story collection Mouth debut book. But before I get started, I want to point out some logistics for how tonight's event is going to go. Community use the restroom, it's right here next to Moleskin. Spinner, we'll be doing a hand-raised Q&A, so start thinking of your questions now. And then after the talk tonight, Puloma will be signing and personalizing books at the table right next to where you checked in, and we'll let you know where to line up after the talk. And then if you're joining us virtually on YouTube, we'd love to encourage you to buy a copy of Mouth online in the link in the description. Thank you. Oh my gosh, Mouth is such an exciting debut collection. I love the ice skater story in particular. And I love this quote from the Chicago Review of Books, which says it perfectly. Surreal and horrifying, Mouth is a collection that sinks its teeth into you with evocative prose and a sense of urgency that are sure to leave a mark. I completely agree with that, and we're so thrilled to discuss this. Puloma Ghosh is a fiction writer based in Chicago whose work has appeared in One Story, Craft Literary, Cut Leaf, and other publications. Mouth is her first book. Molly McGhee is from a cluster of unincorporated towns outside of Nashville, Tennessee. She completed her MFA in fiction at Columbia University, where in addition to receiving a Cheers Fellowship, she taught in an undergraduate creative writing department. She has worked in the editorial departments of McSweeney's, The Believer, Noon, Frost, Ross and Giro, and Tor. She currently lives in Brooklyn, and her work has appeared in the Paris Review. So without any further delay, please join me in welcoming Puloma and Molly.
Guys, are you so excited to hear some of this beautiful collection that Puloma's going to read for us?
I am going to read from the first story. I'm going to skip around in the interest of time. This is a story that my dad stopped reading midway because he said it was disgusting. Desiccation. Ma wanted me to befriend the only other Indian girl at our skating rink because Ma knew the rest of the girls didn't like me. She imagined Pritha and I would be fast friends just because we looked more like each other than we did everyone else. I now think Ma only wanted another mother to commiserate with, one who didn't ignore her while she sat in the stands during competitions wearing her ridiculous puffy coat. Someone from her own country might have been more sympathetic to the choices Ma made, less fearful of the person she'd become. My mother had been alone for a long time, ever since they took my father with all the men years ago. I'm sure she had friends once, but I hardly remember a time before she took the job at the bureau and everyone in town stopped speaking to her. At that age, I thought my aloneness was a choice, a badge of individuality, but my mother knew it was a consequence of her own choices, and that's probably why it bothered her to see me stretch alone. The night before the winter competition, Ma and I made our weekly trip to the shop. She handed me a can and said, "Just talk to her, Meghna. You'll find that you have a lot in common." I didn't know how to explain to her that Pritha didn't strike me as descended from any nationality. The only adult I'd ever seen her with was her coach. Pritha had a singularity that felt like it couldn't have an origin. I was fairly certain she wasn't even human. To avoid answering, I rearranged the items in our cart. Cans at the bottom, boxes up top. "She wants to talk to you. I can tell," Ma insisted. "She's always watching you." I didn't find this comforting. Pritha was pale, slim, and lithe. Everything about her had precision but no warmth. She rocked smoothly from the inside of her blade to the outside, her body a sail against the wind. She was terrifying when she competed. Waxy cheeks split by an uncanny lipstick smile. She always won gold, as though the judges were afraid to give her anything less, and I was always stuck a step below with silver. Pritha never smiled on the podium. In all the pictures that lined the rink's office during the past 3 years that she'd lived here, she stood expressionless. I think we must have been the same age, but beside her, with my toothy white grin, I looked like a child. I had seen corpses, which is why I knew Pritha was not alive. Baba did autopsies before the bureau relocated him to who knows where when I was 7. In middle school, I started snooping around his things. After Ma went to sleep, I often snuck into his old study and opened drawers, peeking into folders of coroner's reports. One day I turned on his computer. His passwords were easy, my birthday or Ma's. I scrolled through the photographs he left behind. Women and men naked on steel tables, sutures across their chests. Crime scenes dotted with yellow tabs, and a body gleaming under the flash like fresh ice. Pritha looked like she had climbed out of one of those photographs and pulled on a skating dress. Her face was blank, her flesh appeared hard and painted. In a locker room full of teenage girls, she was a plastic ball hidden poorly in a ripe bowl of plums. When she walked past, a morgue-like chill raised goosebumps on my skin. I've always loved cold things, the hum of popsicles against my teeth, the chlorine sting of pool water. Whenever my parents took me skating as a child, I would lie face down on the ice in a tantrum at the end of public skating, partially because I didn't want to leave, and partially because I liked the way the cold against my cheek turned into pain and then nothing. Ma said it was Baba's idea to start me with a coach, but I think this was a lie to make me love someone I barely remembered. Sometimes it felt like I missed him, but I was never sure if what I missed was really him or a father fabricated from the ones I'd seen on TV. And maybe it was because he was so unreal to me, so absent from even the places in the house that were once his, that I could find my darkest appetite in that study. I touched myself for the first time there, photographs wallpapering the monitor. The softness of flesh against metal made me want to tense every muscle I had. Eyes open, lips parted, the bodies looked enraptured. They convinced me that death was akin to ecstasy, and imitating their contorted poses on the high-backed chair, I came.
What a way to open a book launch. I can't believe this is her first book, her first launch. Please give it up. Let's hear it louder. Thank you guys for joining us despite the rain. Puloma, thank you for coming in all the way from Chicago.
And thank you for having this convo with me.
Oh my
It'll
god.
be fun.
It's gonna be fun. Okay, so my first question is a hard hitter. How does it feel to have written the goth girl book of the summer?
As someone who always wanted to be a goth girl but kind of like missed the mark just a little bit, like I was just a little bit not goth enough, like I hope my book goes places that I never could achieve.
The gothic is a really big theme throughout the text, and I don't want to put words into your mouth. I kind of want to hear how you feel about it and what you were thinking of when you were sort of collecting these stories.
I think like in the various environments that I was writing in, I was in New England. I was in a family that loved to tell like spooky ghost stories, and I also am a big horror movie person. I think all of this like synthesized in my head, and then I also like I like romance a lot too.
Okay.
So like it kind of like came together as like what if spooky and sexy.
You guys are like, I'm interested. I'm interested. Some of the themes that I noticed that I guess classify as both spooky and sexy are sort of an investigation of gender dynamics, family bonds. I'm curious if that was something that you were thinking about as well when you were writing.
I think for sure. I think there's a lot of like strife and like restlessness and like angst in being a young woman that is easy to make monstrous. And since I also like monsters and scary things, I feel like I just like put the feelings that I was having when I was writing this, you know, in my 20s, and the things that I like genre-wise, and it kind of came together as this.
You were trying on all these different sort of ways to write, and you created a really very experimental work that kind of comes together tonally. Was that your intention when you were starting?
I feel like if it comes together tonally, it's because I wrote all of them and I have
You
like
know what?
my
That's
own
like
tone. Kind of.
That's a brag. I think that's amazing. Guys, the tone is good. The tone in Puloma is good.
But I think that's true for like a lot of writers, especially if you're writing short stories. It's like your obsessions are your obsessions, and whether you like it or not, they'll come out. And also, if you like to read certain types of things and you respond to certain types of style in prose, then you will like naturally start to imitate that in your own way.
Are you an obsessive writer? Does obsession take a lot of place in your practice?
I'm such an obsessive writer.
Okay, tell us a little bit about this.
I just get obsessed with things, and I think like my best writing is when I'm obsessed with two things that have nothing to do with each other, and I decide to like mash them together unholy in the page.
I love that. You're like, how fucked up can I make this?
I like grew up doing some figure skating. I was very bad at it. And also like in situations where like there was not a lot of other Indian people or especially Bengali people around me, so whenever there was, my parents were like, go make friends with her, like and also I am obsessed with like vampire stories. So I was like, these three things from like three separate places in my life, I'm just gonna like try to like crush them together in a story.
Right, because they are all naturally together because you're interested in them. So your
Right.
life has been sort of a concept of bringing all these three disparate things, and then putting this book out was your lens of how you might view those separate aesthetics.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like the cohesion of like being a person who has all these like separate experiences that then become who you are and the life you've lived.
I think that is really, really brave to like very much put yourself in a text. I think right now we're seeing a trend where authors are pulling away. They want some anonymity. What is that like, navigating that balance for you?
I certainly don't write autofiction. Like none of these people are me.
Right.
It's just like it's like kind of like cobbling together little things from different places, and when you put them together in a new combination, they become a new thing. So I wouldn't say that like I'm exactly in most of these stories. There's just things that have come up in my life that I decided to draw from.
Oh.
So like if you have known me for a long time and you read my stories, you'll be like, oh, I know this. Like I know she went to a party that was like this. I know she like did some figure skating, or like I know that she like knew a person who was like this person. But ultimately, like it is not any of those things. It's just like inspiration.
So is it bold of me to say that your writing practice is partly scavenger based and partly obsessive? Is there a third thing that ties those things together?
I think it's definitely like I think you hit it right there. It's like scavenging from my life, and then also like obsessions, and also like things that were obsessions in the past that I can now like see from a distance and like make them into something else.
That can take you, or I imagine it can take you into kind of a dark place. Will you tell us a little bit about your writing process and maybe some influences who helped shore you up along the way?
I think I like to write in a literally dark place often at night, and part of that is just like, you know, I've generally had a 9 to 5, so like that is when I'm not a morning person, so those writers who wake up at 5 a.m., that's like crazy behavior to me. I don't know what that's like.
Yeah, like I would never.
I don't know if I can like put a sentence together at 5 a.m.
What does your average evening look like?
I think it's like get off work, take a little time, make dinner, and then if I'm like, I don't write every day, but if I am gonna write that day, it's like after dinner, I'll be like, I'm shutting myself away. I turn off all the lights. I have these like colored lights. I have my like spooky music or like my horror soundtracks, and then I like get in the zone. And then I can write for a very long time.
What I'm hearing is you're very atmospheric, and I
Totally.
could really pick that up when I was reading these stories. Do you have any authors that are atmospheric that you really sort of look up to?
I really freeze up when
Okay,
people
I'm sorry
tell me to
for
recall
asking.
like
I know it's
specific.
the worst.
It sucks because like I should be able to, but I
felt a lot of Shirley Jackson and Angela Carter.
there's definitely some Shirley Jackson. I've definitely read Angela Carter. I really like Mariana Enriquez. I think she is a freak.
Can
And
you tell everybody a little bit about her?
she writes short stories. She's I believe Argentine.
I think so.
So I've only read her in translation, unfortunately, but She writes a lot of spooky short stories where like weird things happen and they're like creatures. Hers are a lot of the themes have to do with like the politics of her country, which is like a little more like like societal than like I think my work is more personal, but I definitely am influenced by how she pushes genre. I also I really liked like Ma's short stories.
Bliss Montage is
Bliss Montage is really good. And Samantha Hunt.
Oh, one of the best.
Yeah.
One of the best. These are some great. I'm like, usually when people say, "Oh, I can't remember any authors," they come out and they're like, Kerouac. But you just made some really deep cuts.
I feel like I don't read a lot of classics, which I should read more.
No.
There's a lot to
No.
But I love contemporary fiction, usually by women, that are spooky. I mean, of course, like Her Body and Other Parties had its moment. And yeah, I love things that blur genre.
I can really feel that in your work, and I think this is a great addition to the sort of canon that's being developed of spooky,
weird girl fiction.
Yes. Sort of like exploring the uncanniness of just what it means to operate as a woman today.
Yeah.
Do you have? I mean, you said you don't think of your work as political. But I feel like it is. It's political on a personal level.
It's political in the sense that everything is political.
Yeah.
I, of course, as a person in my experience, have interacted with the politics of the world, and that comes out in my work. But I think it's not something I do quite as intentionally and consciously as some other writers do.
I see. Do you think writing about gender is always going to be writing in horror spaces?
I don't think it has to be, but I think it's like what I like to do.
Does it reflect maybe your experience in the world?
I think I just like horror, and
okay, cool.
you know, I think my gender is something that I'm constantly like confronted with in the world, as most people are.
Yeah.
And so it is another scavenging
Yeah.
that
You're
it
paying
comes
attention.
together.
You're observing, and then you're letting that observation take you where naturally you're gonna go. I think I'm gonna ask one more question.
Okay.
Which is, what was your most difficult story to write, and how did you overcome that difficulty?
And Natalia was really difficult. I worked on it for a long time. I started it in like I don't know, when I was like 24, 25,
Wow,
the first draft. And I don't think I knew like what I wanted to write or like what it all meant when I first put it down, and it took me a while to work that out. And then because it moves through time, it took me a while to like organize, and then I had to do research, and I really hate research. But it was necessary, so that took some time.
There are a lot of steps.
There's a lot of steps.
But it came together in the end?
It did come together in the end.
Does it happen to be one of your favorites in the collection? Or do you look at it and you go, oh?
I think I feel kind of neutral about it. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites, but I don't dislike anything I've written. Sometimes
that's actually very impressive. Like,
maybe because it hasn't been long enough, but some things I'm like, oh, I see this, and I see like the fig tree. I see myself young writing this because I wrote it a long time ago. But I feel empathy for the younger person who wrote it, and I think that those were feelings that I was feeling then, and they still feel valid. I feel kind to my past self.
I love that. Wow, I'm moved. We're gonna open it up to you guys. Do you have any questions that you have for Puloma? And I'll repeat them back so that folks who are joining us virtually. Yeah, Jules.
I wanted to ride that theme of like writing for like a previous version for yourself, and I guess like there's always the idea of like you write for yourself, but I guess I just wonder like as you continue to write, but specifically reflecting on this, like which version of yourself do you find is like this is the most applicable for?
Which version of herself does Puloma feel like the stories apply to? And can she speak about that?
I think the stories are really connected to, and like it's not like I've been like not in my 20s for very long. I'm not that old, but it does feel like, I think because COVID, it was such like a line in the sand, and it happened when I was transitioning from 20s to 30s, and like things in my life changed a lot. I feel like these stories feel very relevant to the things I was thinking about and the life I was leading prior to that, which was my 20s.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Can you share a little bit more about the soundtrack of your writing?
Can you share a little bit more about the soundtrack of your writing?
I really like to listen to music when I write. I actually don't think I can write if I'm not listening to music, and it has to be the right music. I think maybe because I like think of things kind of cinematically in my head, I need like the right soundtrack for it, and I listen to a lot of horror music soundtracks. I love Hereditary.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I have a deep cut because I also listen to horror OSTs,
Oh yeah,
which is Phenomena from the director who did Suspiria, the band Goblin.
Oh, I love Goblin. I
Yes.
saw a live performance of Over Suspiria at a theater once. It was
That
so
is
sick.
cool. That's cool.
I love the Suspiria soundtrack. I also knew Suspiria, fantastic soundtrack, and great remake.
Do you have any other questions?
You mentioned like the monstrous feelings that young people can have earlier, and like how it's easy to make some of those like feelings of resentment into something like spooky. Did you find that like writing this work helped like integrate like some of those feelings, or is it sort of like, oh, you can appreciate them for what they are, or the shadows are still useful to you now?
Did you find that writing this work helped you integrate sort of the monstrous feelings of being young?
I think, yeah. I mean, I think that writing is something that can help you understand yourself. And I think being young is monstrous. You're like kind of feral. You're like angry, horny, and like and
Your body is still developing.
Your body is doing lots of weird things, and you feel like this, like, I don't know, energy all the time, and to actually give it monsters and to be like give characters teeth to rip into each other, it feels like such a release, and I think it can be cathartic for sure.
I love that. Any more questions? Okay, we'll take one more. One of you will be brave, and then we'll wrap it up. Jules has another.
What were you reading at the time that like really like stuck with you like throughout the whole thing? Like you mentioned like some like The Hunt and like other authors that you really loved, but like were there like 2 or 3 like major titles that you like?
Were there 2 or 3 books that you kept returning to as you were writing?
Definitely, I already said her, but Mariana Enriquez. She has 2 collections out, and another one is coming out in the fall. She also has a novel out. It's like a big, thick thing.
Oh,
but
thick.
I connect less with the novel a little bit because she did like a different type of writing with that, but her short stories, for sure. I'm trying to think what I have. Oh, Laura Vandenberg. She's so good at short stories.
One of the greats.
I have this like shelf above my desk that I'm trying to visualize where I keep my hits. I really like The House Guest by Amparo Diavola.
Oh, I haven't heard of this one.
Pronounced that well, but she is a Mexican author, and I read her in translation. And she has, I think, only one work translated to English, and it's this very slim short story collection called The House Guest, and I really love it. It's so strange.
I love translated literature.
Yeah, I think I read a lot of Latin American literature. Because I was about to say Bolaño also. I really like his short stories.
You have a type.
And Murakami, I know he's like polarizing, but I think he's a very good short story writer. I love surreal stuff.
Oh yeah, who couldn't love surreal? Well, I guess I'm biased.
We're biased.
We're biased. Wow, everybody, thank you for coming. Puloma, thank you
Thank
so much for
you.
writing this book.
This is fun.
And thank you for doing your launch here. Oh my god.
Thank you guys so much for having me. And thank you guys.
So Puloma is wait, oh, what was this?
I just had a question of what you're working on next.
Oh, what are you working on next?
I am trying to. I have like a few novels that I've started. I'm trying to commit to one and finish it.
Real.
But
That's
they're
real.
all, you know, they all have spooky, scary elements.
I
So
love it. You're going to be signing over here, and we're gonna do a line. I'm gonna pass the mic off. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, so Paloma will be sitting right here. We're gonna start where my coworker is pointing. And then we're going to start the signing line right here. And you can buy copies of Molly's book, which is amazing. We have a lot
Really
of fans
good.
here. And Paloma's book as well if you don't have a copy yet. And thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.